Dear friends, we're working hard to share these with you. Please subscribe and like our work. Thank you in advance. If you're ready, let's begin our story. Security Specialist Marcus Thompson adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform for the third time in 10 minutes, trying to project the kind of professional competence that would reassure both his superiors and the alien dignitary he was assigned to protect. The arrival of Ambassador Zara of the Stellar Federation marked humanity's first official diplomatic contact with an advanced alien civilization, and everyone from the Secretary-General down to the parking attendants was nervous about making the right impression. The transport shuttle touched down at Newark Interplanetary with the kind of precision that suggested technology far beyond human capabilities. Marcus watched through reinforced observation windows as the craft settled onto the landing pad without so much as a vibration, its hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Whatever propulsion system the Altarians used, it made human aerospace engineering look like children playing with paper airplanes. Remember, Thompson, Director Hayes had briefed him that morning, Ambassador Zara is their top diplomat, but she's also from a highly militarized society. Expect her to be formal, possibly intimidating, and definitely analyzing everything for potential security threats. Your job is to keep her safe while making sure she feels welcomed and respected. The shuttle's exit ramp extended with mechanical perfection, and Marcus got his first look at humanity's newest diplomatic contact. Ambassador Zara emerged from the craft with the kind of bearing that screamed military training, her posture perfect and her movements economical. She stood perhaps 6 feet tall, with features that would have been entirely human except for the elegantly pointed ears that marked her alien heritage. Marcus stepped forward to offer the formal greeting he'd rehearsed, but before he could speak, Ambassador Zara's sharp gaze fixed on his midsection with the kind of focused attention usually reserved for active threats. Security Specialist Thompson, she said, her accent carrying musical harmonics that suggested vocal cords evolved for different atmospheric conditions, I must ask you to explain why you are carrying a weapon in such an unconventional location. Marcus blinked, automatically checking his service holster, which was properly positioned on his hip and clearly visible according to standard diplomatic security protocols. Ma'am, my sidearm is holstered in regulation position. I assure you it's properly secured and... Not that weapon, Ambassador Zara interrupted, her gaze dropping lower. The one concealed between your legs. Marcus felt heat rise in his face as he realized what she was referring to. Ambassador, I can assure you that I am not carrying any concealed weapons in that area. Specialist Thompson, I have extensive training in threat assessment and weapons identification. The outline is clearly visible through your uniform fabric, and the positioning suggests a specialized tactical configuration I'm unfamiliar with. Zara stepped closer, her expression intensely professional. Is this some form of advanced human weaponry designed to appear innocuous? Marcus looked around desperately for backup, but the other security personnel were maintaining their assigned perimeter positions, apparently unaware that their colleague was having the most mortifying conversation in diplomatic history. Ma'am, what you're observing is not a weapon. It's a natural part of human male anatomy. Ambassador Zara's eyebrows rose with what appeared to be scientific interest. Natural anatomy? Are you telling me that human males have evolved biological weapons as part of their standard physiological configuration? It's not a weapon. Marcus said, his voice climbing slightly before he caught himself and returned to professional tones. Ambassador, I think there may be some fundamental misunderstandings about human biology that we need to address. Indeed there are, Zara agreed, pulling out what looked like a crystalline data pad. My briefings indicated that humans were a peaceful species with limited natural combat adaptations. If you're equipped with integrated biological armaments, this suggests our intelligence was significantly flawed. Marcus watched in horror as she began taking what appeared to be tactical notes about his anatomy. Ambassador, please stop analyzing that's not what it's for. Then what is its tactical application? Concealment capabilities? Close quarters combat? Psychological warfare? Zara's questions were delivered with the kind of clinical precision that suggested she was compiling a military intelligence report. It's for reproduction, Marcus said desperately, then immediately regretted the phrasing as Zara's expression shifted to something approaching fascination. Reproduction requires weaponry in human culture. How remarkably efficient. Your species combines biological imperatives with tactical preparedness. She made more notes. Does the weapon deploy automatically during reproductive scenarios, or do you maintain conscious control over its activation? Marcus felt his diplomatic training completely abandon him. It's not a weapon that deploys. It's just there. All human males have one. All human males carry concealed biological weapons. Zara looked around at the other security personnel with new interest. This suggests a level of militarization in your society that our analysts completely missed. Before Marcus could explain further, Zara's security detail emerged from the shuttle, 3 tall Eltarians who moved with the fluid coordination of professional soldiers. Their leader approached with the kind of alert posture that suggested they'd been monitoring the conversation. Commander Thex, Zara addressed her security chief. Specialist Thompson has revealed that human males are equipped with concealed biological weapons integrated into their reproductive systems. We may need to recalibrate our threat assessment protocols. Commander Thex studied Marcus with the intense focus of a predator evaluating prey. Specialist, will need to conduct a formal weapons inspection to ensure compliance with diplomatic security agreements. A weapons inspection? Marcus's voice cracked slightly. Commander, with all due respect, that's completely unnecessary. There are no weapons to inspect. Specialist Thompson, Ambassador Zara said with patient professionalism, if you're carrying biological armaments, we need to understand their capabilities and operational parameters. This is standard diplomatic security protocol. Marcus looked at the group of aliens who were apparently preparing to conduct the most awkward security check in history, then at the human diplomatic staff who were beginning to notice the commotion, then back at Ambassador Zara, who was waiting for his cooperation with the kind of expectant patience that suggested she considered this a routine procedure. Ambassador, he said carefully, I think we need to have a much longer conversation about human biology before we proceed with any inspections. Excellent, Zara replied, apparently pleased by his willingness to cooperate. I'm always eager to learn about the tactical adaptations of new species. Perhaps you could provide a detailed briefing on human biological weaponry and its combat applications. Marcus closed his eyes and wondered if it was too late to request a transfer to Mars. Somehow, in the space of 10 minutes, he'd managed to convince humanity's first alien diplomat that human males were walking weapons platforms, and now she wanted a technical manual. This was definitely not covered in diplomatic security training. Ambassador, he said finally, this is going to require some very careful explanation and possibly some educational materials about human anatomy. I appreciate thoroughness in intelligence briefings, Zara said approvingly. Shall we proceed to a secure location where you can provide a comprehensive overview of human biological weapons systems? Marcus nodded weakly, realizing that he was about to give the strangest presentation of his career to an audience of armed alien diplomats who thought he was carrying advanced weaponry in his pants. The day was young, and already it had become a disaster that would either be classified at the highest levels of government or become the most embarrassing footnote in first contact history. Either way, Marcus was pretty sure his career in diplomatic security was about to take a very unexpected turn. The United Nations Diplomatic Reception Hall had never hosted a more awkward cultural exchange. Marcus found himself standing beside Ambassador Zara as she greeted world leaders with the kind of professional courtesy that would have been perfect if she hadn't been simultaneously conducting what she believed was tactical analysis of every male diplomat present. Secretary General Morrison, Zara said warmly, accepting his handshake while her eyes performed what Marcus now recognized as her standard threat assessment scan. I'm honored to meet the leader of Earth's governmental confederation. I notice you're also equipped with biological armaments. Is this standard for high-ranking officials? Secretary General Morrison's eyebrows rose slightly as he processed the comment. I'm sorry, Ambassador, I'm not sure what you mean by biological armaments. The concealed weapons system, Zara clarified helpfully, gesturing toward the area that had caused Marcus such mortification earlier. Specialist Thompson explained that all human males carry integrated tactical equipment. I'm curious about the military hierarchy that determines distribution of such advanced biological weaponry. Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead as he watched Morrison's expression cycle through confusion, realization, and barely suppressed panic. Ambassador Zara, Marcus interjected quickly, perhaps we could discuss these technical details in private rather than during formal introductions. Technical details are precisely what make diplomatic exchanges valuable, Zara replied, then turned back to Morrison. Secretary General, are there different classes of biological weapons based on rank, or does your species maintain standardized armaments across all males? Morrison looked at Marcus with the kind of desperate expression usually reserved for natural disasters or nuclear incidents. Specialist Thompson, perhaps you could brief Ambassador Zara on human biological specifications. In a more appropriate setting. Before Marcus could respond, French Ambassador Dubois approached their group, apparently drawn by the intriguing conversation. Ambassador Zara, welcome to Earth. I couldn't help overhearing your discussion of biological armaments. Are you referring to some kind of bioweapons treaty concerns? Treaty concerns? Zara's interest sharpened. Are human biological weapons regulated by international agreement? This suggests a level of lethality that requires formal controls. Biological weapons? Dubois looked confused. Ambassador, I believe there may be some translation difficulties. Human males don't carry biological weapons as part of their anatomy. Zara consulted her data pad, reviewing notes she'd been taking throughout the reception. Ambassador Dubois, with respect, the evidence is clearly visible. Every human male I've encountered today displays the characteristic outline of concealed tactical equipment in the same anatomical location. Marcus watched Dubois's face as understanding dawned, followed immediately by the kind of diplomatic horror that comes from realizing you're discussing anatomy at a formal reception. Ambassador Zara, I think there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about human physiology. Indeed, Zara agreed. My initial intelligence suggested humans were a peaceful species with limited natural combat capabilities. The discovery of integrated biological weaponry requires significant reassessment of your civilization's military potential. Russian Ambassador Volkov joined their expanding group, apparently attracted by what seemed to be the most interesting conversation at the reception. Ambassador Zara, I am honored to meet you. Are you discussing military cooperation between our species? Military analysis, actually, Zara replied. I'm trying to understand the tactical applications of human biological weapons systems. Do different nations employ variations in their biological armaments, or is this a species-wide standardization? Volkov blinked rapidly, clearly trying to process the question. I'm sorry, biological weapons systems? The concealed tactical equipment carried by all human males, Zara clarified, beginning to sound slightly impatient with what she apparently viewed as human evasiveness about obvious military capabilities. Marcus realized the situation was spiraling completely out of control as more diplomats began gathering around their group, drawn by what appeared to be a fascinating discussion of military technology. He needed to intervene before Ambassador Zara began conducting comparative weapons analysis of the entire diplomatic corps. Ambassador, he said loudly enough to interrupt the growing conversation, perhaps we should continue this briefing in a more private setting. The details of human equipment might be better discussed without such a large audience. Excellent point, Specialist Thompson. Operational security is crucial when discussing advanced weaponry. Zara addressed the gathered diplomats. Gentlemen, I apologize, but further analysis of your biological weapons systems must be conducted in a secure environment. I hope you understand the need for discretion regarding military capabilities. The diplomats exchanged glances that ranged from bewildered to mortified as they realized what Zara believed she'd been analyzing. Secretary General Morrison stepped forward with the kind of diplomatic smile reserved for potential international incidents. Ambassador Zara, we completely understand. Perhaps Dr. Chen from our xenobiology department could provide you with detailed briefing materials about human anatomy, human specifications, in a more appropriate venue. Dr. Chen. Zara consulted her data pad. Is this individual a weapons specialist? She's a biological specialist, Marcus said quickly. She can explain the technical aspects of human physiology in scientific terms. Scientific analysis is always preferable to field observation, Zara agreed. Though I must say, your species' approach to concealed weapons is remarkably sophisticated. The integration with reproductive biology suggests evolutionary pressure toward constant tactical readiness. Ambassador Du Bois made a sound that might have been a cough or might have been suppressed laughter. Ambassador, I think you'll find human evolution took some unexpected directions. Evolution always surprises, Zara said philosophically. Though I admit, biological weapons that also serve reproductive functions represent an efficiency of design that our military engineers would admire. Marcus felt his diplomatic training finally reassert itself. Ambassador, before we continue this analysis, perhaps we should establish some basic parameters for the discussion. Dr. Chen can provide comprehensive biological education that might clarify some of the technical aspects you're interested in. Comprehensive education is always valuable, Zara agreed. I'll prepare a list of tactical questions for Dr. Chen. Range, deployment mechanisms, combat effectiveness, integration with existing military doctrine. Ambassador, Marcus interrupted desperately, I think you might want to approach this topic with a completely open mind. Human biology might be different from what you're expecting. Zara looked at him with the kind of patient expression reserved for junior officers who state the obvious. Specialist Thompson, all biological warfare systems are different. That's what makes comparative analysis so valuable. As Marcus led Ambassador Zara toward the conference room where Dr. Chen was waiting, he reflected on how first contact with alien civilization was turning out to be far more educational than anyone had anticipated. Unfortunately, the education was going in directions that nobody had prepared for. Behind them, the diplomatic reception continued with the kind of forced normalcy that comes after everyone has pretended not to overhear a conversation about biological weapons that aren't actually weapons. Marcus was pretty sure that today's reception would be remembered as either a breakthrough in interspecies communication or the most mortifying cultural exchange in human history. Possibly both. Dr. Sarah Chen had seen many strange things in her career as the UN's chief xenobiologist, but sitting across from an alien diplomat who wanted to discuss what she believed were concealed biological weapons definitely ranked among the more surreal experiences. Ambassador Zara had arrived at the secure conference room with a data pad full of tactical notes and the kind of scientific curiosity that suggested she was preparing to write a military intelligence report. Dr. Chen, Zara began formally, Specialist Thompson has informed me that you can provide comprehensive technical briefings on human biological weapons systems. I'm particularly interested in their evolutionary development and tactical applications. Sarah glanced at Marcus, who was sitting beside Zara with the expression of someone who'd been through a very long day. His brief communication had warned her about the nature of the misunderstanding, but experiencing Zara's earnest military analysis of human anatomy was still deeply surreal. Ambassador Zara, Sarah said carefully, before we begin, I think it would be helpful if you could describe what you've observed that leads you to believe human males carry biological weapons. Certainly. Zara consulted her notes with professional efficiency. Visual analysis reveals consistent anatomical modifications in all human males, specifically a concealed tactical configuration in the pelvic region. The size and positioning suggest a specialized weapon system integrated with reproductive biology for maximum concealment effectiveness. Sarah maintained her scientific composure despite the increasingly bizarre direction of the conversation. Ambassador, what you're observing isn't a weapon system. It's standard human male reproductive anatomy. Dr. Sarah Chen had seen many strange things in her career as the UN's chief xenobiologist, but sitting across from an alien diplomat who wanted to discuss what she believed were concealed biological weapons definitely ranked among the more surreal experiences. Ambassador Zara had arrived at the secure conference room with a data pad full of tactical notes and the kind of scientific curiosity that suggested she was preparing to write a military intelligence report. Dr. Chen, Zara began formally, Specialist Thompson has informed me that you can provide comprehensive technical briefings on human biological weapons systems. I'm particularly interested in their evolutionary development and tactical applications. Sarah glanced at Marcus, who was sitting beside Zara with the expression of someone who'd been through a very long day. His brief communication had warned her about the nature of the misunderstanding, but experiencing Zara's earnest military analysis of human anatomy was still deeply surreal. Ambassador Zara, Sarah said carefully, before we begin, I think it would be helpful if you could describe what you've observed that leads you to believe human males carry biological weapons. Certainly. Zara consulted her notes with professional efficiency. Visual analysis reveals consistent anatomical modifications in all human males, specifically a concealed tactical configuration in the pelvic region. The size and positioning suggest a specialized weapon system integrated with reproductive biology for maximum concealment effectiveness. Sarah maintained her scientific composure despite the increasingly bizarre direction of the conversation. Ambassador, what you're observing isn't a weapon system. It's standard human male reproductive anatomy. Yes, Specialist Thompson explained the reproductive integration aspect, Zara agreed. This represents remarkably sophisticated biological engineering, combining weapons capability with essential biological functions suggests evolutionary pressure toward constant combat readiness. Ambassador, Sarah tried again, there is no weapons capability. The anatomical structures you're analyzing serve purely reproductive and waste elimination functions. Zara looked skeptical. Dr. Chen, with respect, the tactical implications are obvious. Concealment within reproductive anatomy provides perfect camouflage, positioning allows for close-quarters deployment, and the universal presence in males suggests species-wide military standardization. Marcus rubbed his temples. Dr. Chen, maybe we could approach this from a comparative anatomy perspective? Sarah nodded, pulling up holographic displays of various species' biological structures. Ambassador, could you describe Altarian male reproductive anatomy for comparison purposes? Altarian males possess external reproduction facilitators that are compact and retractable when not in active use, Zara explained clinically. Nothing resembling the prominent tactical configuration observed in human males. I see, Sarah said, beginning to understand the source of confusion. Ambassador, human male anatomy is naturally more prominent than many species. What you're interpreting as weapon concealment is actually the normal anatomical structure necessary for our reproductive biology. Zara studied the comparative diagrams with intense focus. These schematics suggest the human configuration is significantly larger than necessary for basic reproductive function. The excess size and rigid positioning strongly indicate dual-purpose design. Dual-purpose? Sarah asked weakly. Reproductive function and tactical capability, Zara clarified. Though I admit, the tactical applications remain unclear. Perhaps psychological warfare? Intimidation through display of biological armaments? Marcus made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been despair. Ambassador, I assure you that intimidation isn't the intended function. Then what is the tactical application? Zara asked with genuine scientific curiosity. The evolutionary cost of maintaining such large, prominent biological structures must be justified by significant survival advantages. Sarah found herself in the unprecedented position of explaining human reproductive biology to someone who interpreted it as military technology. Ambassador, the size and structure serve specific reproductive functions. There's no tactical or weapons capability involved. Dr. Chen, I've reviewed the anatomical data, and the design specifications exceed reproductive requirements by significant margins, Zara replied. Altarian military engineering recognizes this as classic dual-purpose biological modification. What if I told you that the structures you're analyzing are actually relatively vulnerable rather than weapons-capable? Sarah asked desperately. Zara's expression shifted to something approaching concern. Vulnerable? Are you saying human males carry biological weapons with inherent design flaws? This could explain why humans appear to be a peaceful species despite possessing advanced biological armaments. They're vulnerable because they're not weapons, Marcus said, his patience finally showing signs of strain. Ambassador, what would it take to convince you that human male anatomy is exactly what it appears to be, reproductive biology, nothing more? Zara consulted her data pad thoughtfully. Direct analysis would be required. Non-invasive scanning to determine internal structure, composition analysis to identify potential weapon mechanisms, and functional testing to verify tactical capabilities. Functional testing. Sarah and Marcus said simultaneously. Standard weapons evaluation protocols, Zara explained matter-of-factly. Range assessment, deployment speed, target acquisition accuracy. No, Marcus said firmly. Absolutely not. There will be no functional testing of human anatomy for weapons capabilities. Then how do you propose to verify tactical specifications? Zara asked reasonably. Sarah realized they'd reached a critical impasse. Zara's scientific approach and military training were preventing her from accepting explanations that contradicted her observational data, while the humans were increasingly frustrated by her inability to recognize basic biology. Ambassador, Sarah said slowly, what if we could provide definitive proof that the structures you're analyzing have no weapons capability whatsoever? What kind of proof? Medical scanning data, biological analysis, and documentation from human medical literature spanning centuries of anatomical study. Sarah began pulling up comprehensive databases. Would extensive scientific evidence from human medical experts convince you? Zara studied the offered data with the kind of focused attention she'd previously reserved for tactical analysis. This documentation spans significant time periods and includes analysis by numerous independent researchers. Correct. And in all of human medical history, there has never been any identification of weapons capability in male reproductive anatomy. The evidence is extensive, Zara admitted, scrolling through centuries of medical documentation. And the consistent findings across multiple research institutions suggest accurate analysis rather than the revelation about Altarian military preparations based on Zara's anatomical misunderstanding transformed what had been an embarrassing cultural incident into a diplomatic breakthrough of unexpected proportions. As Zara explained the extent to which her people had been preparing for contact with what they believed was a warrior species, Sarah and Marcus realized that clearing up the biological confusion had prevented a potentially catastrophic first contact scenario. Our battle fleet has been maintaining defensive positions in your outer solar system for the past 3 months, Zara admitted, her embarrassment evident despite her attempt to maintain diplomatic composure. When initial reconnaissance suggested that human males carried concealed biological weapons, our military advisors recommended maximum tactical readiness for diplomatic contact. Marcus felt his relief evaporate. Battle fleet. 17 warships with full tactical deployment capability, Zara confirmed. We couldn't risk diplomatic contact with an apparently peaceful species that might actually be concealing advanced biological weapons technology. Sarah stared at her. Ambassador, you're telling us that there's been an alien battle fleet in our solar system for 3 months because you thought human men were carrying weapons in their pants? The tactical implications seemed significant at the time, Zara said defensively. A species that could integrate sophisticated weapons with reproductive biology suggested evolutionary pressure toward constant combat readiness. We assumed humans must have survived against extremely dangerous threats to develop such capabilities. And now that you know it's just anatomy? Zara consulted her communicator, speaking rapidly in the melodic Altarian language. The conversation lasted several minutes, with her tone gradually shifting from formal military reporting to what sounded increasingly like explanations and reassurances. When she finished, she looked up at them with an expression that mixed relief with residual embarrassment. I have informed command that the perceived biological weapons threat was based on misinterpretation of standard human anatomy, she reported. Fleet Admiral Cortex has ordered the battle fleet to stand down to peaceful diplomatic status. Marcus sank into his chair. We've been on the brink of interstellar war because of a biological misunderstanding. Not war, Precisely, Zara clarified. More like extremely cautious diplomacy with extensive military backup in case negotiations went badly. How badly did your people think negotiations might go? Sarah asked. Well, we assumed that a species carrying biological weapons might be aggressive negotiators with unpredictable tactical responses to diplomatic pressure, Zara explained. The fleet was positioned to provide rapid evacuation capabilities if humans proved to be as dangerous as their apparent weaponry suggested. Sarah looked at Marcus, then back at Zara. Ambassador, this misunderstanding might actually have been beneficial for both our species. How so? Your people approached negotiations with maximum caution and respect because they believed humans were formidable. Meanwhile, humans have been trying extra hard to appear peaceful and reasonable because we knew this was a crucial first contact scenario. Sarah smiled. Both sides have been on their best behavior because of mutual concern about the other's capabilities. Zara considered this. That's, actually quite perceptive. Our military advisors did recommend treating humans as a species deserving significant respect due to their apparent biological weapons capabilities. And now that you know we're not secretly armed. Now I can report that humans are a genuinely peaceful species with remarkable diplomatic skills and fascinating biological diversity, Zara said. Though I should probably include detailed anatomical clarifications in my cultural briefing to prevent similar misunderstandings in future contact situations. Marcus had a horrifying vision of his anatomy being discussed in alien diplomatic briefings across the galaxy. Ambassador, when you say detailed anatomical clarifications. Oh, nothing inappropriately personal, Zara assured him quickly. Just technical specifications sufficient to prevent other Altarian diplomats from misinterpreting human male anatomy as concealed weaponry. That's better, I suppose. Sarah was already thinking ahead to the broader implications. Ambassador, this experience suggests that both our species could benefit from more comprehensive biological and cultural exchange programs. Misunderstandings like this could be prevented with better preliminary education. Agreed completely, Zara said enthusiastically. I propose establishing formal xenobiology exchange protocols. Altarian and human scientists could collaborate on comparative anatomy studies to prevent future diplomatic incidents based on biological misinterpretation. That sounds like an excellent foundation for ongoing cooperation, Sarah agreed. Though we should probably develop some discrete protocols for discussing anatomical differences. Discretion is essential in diplomatic communication, Zara acknowledged. Though I admit, this entire experience has been remarkably educational. Human biology is far more interesting than our preliminary intelligence suggested. Marcus decided he was probably better off not knowing what aspects of human biology Zara found particularly interesting. Ambassador, what happens now with the diplomatic process? Now we proceed with formal treaty negotiations from a position of mutual understanding rather than mutual caution, Zara replied. And I suspect the process will be far more productive now that both sides understand each other's actual capabilities. Over the following weeks, the anatomical misunderstanding that had nearly caused an interstellar incident became the foundation for the most successful first contact in human history. Zara's detailed cultural reports, carefully edited to maintain appropriate diplomatic discretion, helped Altarian society understand that humans were genuinely peaceful rather than cleverly concealing their aggressive nature. The comparative biology programs that emerged from the incident led to breakthrough discoveries in xenobiology, while the diplomatic protocols developed to prevent similar misunderstandings became the template for contact with other alien species. Marcus found himself assigned as the permanent liaison to Ambassador Zara, a role that involved helping her navigate human culture while preventing any recurrence of the biological weapons confusion. Their working relationship evolved into genuine friendship based on shared laughter over the absurdity of their first meeting and mutual respect for each other's professional competence. Marcus, Zara said one day as they reviewed diplomatic protocols for upcoming contact with a different alien species, I've been thinking about our first conversation at the spaceport. Please tell me you're not still analyzing my anatomy for tactical applications. Not at all, Zara laughed, a sound that had become familiar and welcome over the months of their collaboration. I was thinking about how fortunate it was that you were patient enough to help me understand my mistake rather than simply becoming offended by my questions. It wasn't exactly patience, Marcus admitted. It was mostly terror about causing a diplomatic incident. Well, whatever motivated it, your willingness to engage with my confusion rather than dismiss it led to much better outcomes than anyone expected. Zara pulled up their latest cooperation statistics. The cultural exchange programs, the scientific collaborations, the military cooperation agreements, all of it traces back to a conversation about what I thought was a concealed weapon. Marcus looked at the data showing unprecedented levels of human-Altarian cooperation across multiple fields. You know, when I first became a security specialist, I never imagined that discussing anatomy with alien diplomats would become a regular part of my job. When I first became a diplomat, I never imagined that misunderstanding biological functions would lead to the most successful interspecies relationship in Altarian history, Zara replied. Though I have to say, human biology remains fascinating from a scientific perspective. Just promise me you'll never again ask if I'm carrying a gun between my legs. Zara grinned, an expression that had become much more frequent as she'd grown comfortable with human social customs. I promise, Marcus. Though if we encounter any other species with unusual anatomical configurations, I may need you to help me interpret what I'm observing. Marcus sighed, accepting his fate as the galaxy's most reluctant expert in cross-species biological diplomacy. At least, he reflected, it was never boring. And somewhere in the outer solar system, the Altarian fleet maintained peaceful patrol positions, their crews probably still chuckling about the biological weapons that turned out to be standard human anatomy. Some diplomatic incidents, Marcus had learned, were worth having if they led to the right kind of understanding.